Go Team Venture!
Hey, and welcome to another installment of AJN Checkpoint Extras. I'm Nate, your resident nerd, and these are the bonus runs. Not quite the massive deep dives, but not as quick as a hot take either. Think of them as nerd snacks between the bigger meals. A chance to dig into some lore, side stories, or topics that don't need the full hour-plus treatment, but still deserve more love than a throwaway mention. And today's snack? Well, it's a hearty one. Because when I did that Cartoon Network monster deep dive, I feel like I barely skimmed Adult Swim. And there was one show, my personal favorite Adult Swim show, that I couldn't just leave at a drive-by reference. And I'm talking about the Venture Brothers. 7 seasons, a 20-year run, and a finale film that gave us actual closure. It's a show that turned parody into pathos, cannon fodder into characters, and butterfly wings into Greek tragedy. So let's dig in. This is the Venture Brothers, Checkpoint Extra. Now, a quick primer in case you somehow missed it. The Venture Brothers is an Adult Swim original, created by Jackson Public, real name Christopher McCulloch, and co-piloted by Doc Hammer. The pilot aired in 2003, with the first season airing in 2004, and it ran across 7 seasons until 2018. It's basically what if Johnny Quest kept going, and 30 years later, everyone was a complete fucking mess. The boy adventurer is now a washed-up dad. The bodyguard is still very much lethal, but he's exhausted. The villains are more concerned with HR paperwork than world domination. And at its core, the Venture Brothers is about failure. Beautiful, human, inevitable failure. Jackson Public even said it. The beauty of failure is the beauty of human beings. And it's not just spoof. The show leaned into serialization. Jokes came back seasons later as plot arcs. Side characters grew into leads. Continuity mattered. And for a block known for stoner randomness, that was completely revolutionary. And then there's the sound of it all. J.G. Thrillwell, aka Fotis, did the music. Industrial spy noir bombast, strings, horns, surf guitar, industrial churn. The Venture Brothers doesn't just look like a pulp throwback, it sounded like one. Now let's talk about the bumpy road the show took to even get made. 7 seasons across 15 years. I want you to do that math. That's a lot of waiting. The Venture Brothers fans basically had to be trained like monks in the art of patience. You'd get a season, and then maybe 18 months, maybe 2 years before you got the next one. Adult Swim didn't cancel it early like they did with other shows, but they sure didn't make it easy. There were big milestone specials like All This and Gargantua 2 in 2015. That was the one that blew up the old status quo, literally, and set the table for seasons 6 and 7. Stakes, spectacle, character arcs paying off. And then, in 2020, came the real gut punch. Actual cancellation. And season 8 was already in the process of being written. Fans were 100% on board and hyped. And then boom, dead. But Adult Swim walked it back later. They said they were working with Public and Hammer to give the story an ending. That turned into the 2023 movie, Radiant is the Blood of the Baboon Heart. It releases on digital July 21st and then Blu-ray July 25th. It also hit HBO Max 3 months later. The critics loved it. The fans loved it. Rotten Tomatoes had it in the 90s on release. It was warm, emotional, and it gave the Ventures a proper send-off. If you stuck with the Venture Brothers from the start, you basically lived in cliffhangers and hiatuses. But somehow, they made it always worth the wait. All right, so now let's get into the meat, because the Venture Brothers isn't just riffs and references. The parody is the doorway in. The reason it's stuck is because these characters are human. Sometimes tragic, sometimes absolutely hilarious, sometimes both. And the show makes everyone count, from the leads all the way down to the background henchmen. So let's start with the biggest ghost in the room. Every Venture story starts with a ghost, and that ghost is Jonas Ventures Sr. On paper, Jonas Sr. is a pulp god. Think Reed Richards, Doc Savage, Dr. Quest from Johnny Quest, all rolled into one. Charismatic genius, super scientist, savior of mankind. He built Gargantua 1, led Team Venture, smiled for the cameras. The guy was supposed to be the atomic age American dream in a lab coat. But the show peels that all back. And what's underneath isn't a hero. It's a tyrant. Jonas Sr. didn't nurture greatness, he suffocated it. He dragged Rusty, his only son, on adventures where the kid was more mascot than child. He treated Action Man, Colonel Gentleman, Otto Aquarius, and Kano like props in the Jonas Ventures show. And you see the fallout everywhere. Colonel Gentleman grows into a bitter, flamboyant hedonist. Action Man is basically a walking aneurysm waiting to pop. Otto Aquarius is a leftover pulp fish man who doesn't fit anywhere. And Kano carries Jonas's sins in silence. These weren't sidekicks. They were casualties. Jonas Sr. didn't leave a legacy, he left a curse. Rusty grows up under an impossible shadow. And worse, a shadow that wasn't even worth idolizing in the first place. And if Jonas Sr. wasn't guilty enough already, let's talk about what he did to the Blue Morpho. On paper, the Morpho's supposed to be fun. He's the Green Hornet of the Venture Brothers universe. Cool car, Kano as his Kato. A masked vigilante for the pulp age. Then tragedy. A plane crash kills him and his wife. And that should have been the end. But Jonas Sr. can't let anything end. He digs the corpse back up and resurrects him as Venturion, a grotesque cyborg puppet. Not mercy, not compassion, just mad science hubris. And if that wasn't enough, the guild eventually gets its claws in. They reprogram him into Vendetta, wipe his memory, and turn him into a pawn, a once hero reduced to a shambling husk. Now fast forward to season 7, and the Venture Brothers and the Curse of the Haunted Problem, and arrears in science, the truth comes out. Haunted Venture Compound, flickers of memory, and the reveal that Venturion, Vendetta, this twisted machine, was the Monarch's father. That reframes 20 years of storytelling. The Monarch isn't just a petty butterfly crank, he's the son of a pulp hero, robbed of his legacy twice over. And then Radiant is the Blood of the Baboon Heart drops the hammer. Rusty and the Monarch are brothers. The Blue Morpho's tragedy isn't just backstory, it's some of the DNA of the entire show. And then we've got the poisoned heir himself, Dr. Thaddeus Rusty Venture. Rusty is the boy adventurer who grew up into a bitter, insecure man. He's selfish, he's broke, he's a grifter in a lab coat. His inventions? Junk. Shrink rays that don't shrink, death rays that sputter. The Joy Can, which should have come packaged with a lawyer. Episodes hammer it home. In Careers in Science, he's incompetent, running a space station. In Spanakopita, he's so desperate for validation, he buys into an entire fake festival. In Self-Medication, he sits in group therapy with other failed boy adventurers. And you realize he's not alone. He's just the worst at dealing with it. Rusty isn't secretly brilliant. He's not misunderstood. He's proof Jonas Sr. didn't build a legacy. He built a trauma machine, and Rusty is its mascot. But then comes the twist. Jonas Venture Jr. Season 1's finale, Return to Spider Skull Island. Rusty thinks he's got a tumor. Surgeons pull out his parasitic twin. JJ is malformed, undersized body, missing his left arm, massive adult head. And his first instinct is to try and murder Rusty. Brock's ready to curb stomp him, but Rusty, in a rare moment of mercy, stops him. And once JJ stabilizes, he's everything Rusty isn't. Charismatic, respected, competent. He takes Spider Skull Island and turns it into an empire. He builds Gargantua too, a moonshot Rusty could only dream of. And the kicker? JJ isn't cruel. He genuinely likes Rusty. He wants to be his brother. And that kindness is devastating. Because Rusty can't hate him, and he can't compete with him either. By season 7, JJ's suddenly gone. Dead. And in the ultimate irony, he leaves everything to Rusty. The empire, the legacy, all of it. Not because Rusty earned it, because greatness dies and failure inherits. That's the Venture curse in one sentence. And let's not forget the boys. Season 1, Hank and Dean are straight Hardy Boy knockoffs. Matching sweaters, goofy optimism, and then the reveal. They're clones. Rusty just keeps a backup of his kids like they're action figures. That could have stayed a gag, but by season 4, Operation P.R.O.M, Hank's stepping into his cowboy persona, and Dean's grappling with identity. By the bellicose proxy, Dean's learning responsibility. Hank's chasing independence. The clones stopped being clones. They started being characters. The show asked, if your whole life was a rerun, how do you ever become real? Hank leans into swagger. Dean leans into brains. And for once in Venture history, the kids might actually break the cycle. And then there's Brock Sampson. Human tank. Walking mullet. Knife in one hand. Swedish murder ballad in the other. Brock is everything Rusty isn't. Competent, lethal, loyal. He's also the closest thing Hank and Dean ever had to kind of a real father figure. His parenting style? Ultra-violence. But it worked. Episodes like Midlife Chrysalis show his softer side. The family that slays together stays together shows his loyalty when the OSI tries to cut him loose. Brock's the anchor. Rusty's chaos destroys. Brock's violence protects. He's James Bond if James Bond actually cared about the kids he puts in danger. And of course, when you talk about Brock, you can't leave out Molotov cock tease. Brock's kryptonite. The one-woman Cold War in an eye patch. Molotov starts as a pulp pinup gag. A Russian super spy with a name that's already a punchline and a wardrobe built to derail a knife fight. But like everything in the Venture Brothers, the joke is just the decoy. Underneath is a stone-cold professional who uses seduction the way Brock uses a Bowie knife, as a tool, not a personality. Her whole deal is desire weaponized. The eternal almost. The chastity belt running gag isn't just a tease, it's control. She decides when the game starts and when it ends. Brock, a human wood chipper who can walk through a platoon, can't brute force his way past her agency. That's why she gets in his head. Across the series, she flips allegiances like playing cards. Freelance assassin, guild adjacent operator, mercenary leader of the Blackhearts. Not chaos for chaos's sake. She serves the mission, her crew, and herself in that order. And she's good enough at it that the OSI and the guild both treat her like weather. You don't stop a storm, you plan around it. Narratively, Molotov is the mirror that makes Brock grow up. Every time she shows up, she stress tests his core beliefs, loyalty and violence. You can't out-punch heartbreak. You can't out-knife trust. Episodes use her to yank Brock out of indestructible tank mode and force him to be a person. Protective with the boys, wary with Rusty, suddenly mortal when feelings get involved. And because it's the Venture Brothers, the show keeps her in that liminal space between love and professional rivalry. Half noir romance, half HR violation. Sometimes she saves Brock. Sometimes she sells him out. And sometimes those are the same damn thing. The point isn't will they, won't they? It's that they shouldn't. And both of them know it, which is why they keep orbiting each other anyways. So what starts as a cheesecake gag becomes one of the series' sharpest instruments. A character who collapses pulp tropes into something messier, meaner, and more honest. Molotov isn't Brock's missing piece. She's the consequence of who he is. And now we get to the butterfly himself, the mighty Monarch. He starts as a punchline, a butterfly-themed villain obsessed with Rusty for no clear reason. His henchmen die in literal droves. His plans, they teeter towards being idiotic. But over the seasons, obsession turns to destiny. Sheila, Dr. Mrs. the Monarch, is his ballast. Their marriage is weird, but it's one of the healthiest in the entire show. Then comes the Blue Morpho reveal. Suddenly, the Monarch's whole life makes sense. His father was a vigilante. His birthright was stolen. When he dons the Blue Morpho suit himself, he starts taking out guild villains. And for the first time, he's kinda terrifying. And then the bombshell. Rusty and the Monarch are brothers. That recontextualizes everything. The rivalry was never random. The obsession was never petty. It was blood. Jonas Sr. sin splitting his sons in two and pitting them against each other. That's not parody anymore. That's Shakespeare, butterfly wings and all. And then there's Sheila, Dr. Girlfriend, Dr. Mrs. the Monarch. The femme fatale with a deep, smoky voice that threw everybody off the first time you heard it. When she first shows up, it feels like a one-note joke. Classic pulp-era supervillain arm candy. She's got the Jackie O suits, the femme fatale styling, and then bam, out comes that voice. Sexy assassin on the outside, chain smoker on the inside. Instant gag. But this is the Venture Brothers, and they never leave a joke alone. They flip it. They build on it. And suddenly, Sheila isn't just a parody. She's the smartest, most competent person in the entire guild of calamitous intent. She's the one who keeps the Monarch's ridiculous butterfly empire afloat. She's the one who navigates guild politics without losing her soul. She's the one who can walk into a council chamber full of maniacs in costumes and somehow come out respected. And through all of that, she never stops loving the Monarch. Their marriage is messy, sure, but it's also one of the healthiest relationships in adult animation. They fight, they bicker, they lie, they scheme, but they still choose each other every time. It's wild when you really think about it. Out of all the characters in this world of failure and fallout, the couple that works is a butterfly-themed villain and his razor-sharp, chain-smoking wife. That's Sheila's arc in a nutshell. She starts as a gag and she ends as the heart of villainy. She proves that in the Venture Brothers, no character has to stay flat. Jokes turn into people, and sometimes the punchline grows into the backbone of the whole damn story. Now, all of this chaos is happening under the guild of calamitous intent. Because here's Venture Brothers' secret weapon. Villainy isn't chaos. Villainy is paperwork. You want to arch Dr. Venture? Fill out the forms. Want to advance to level 10? Rack up enough credits. Want to kill someone? You need to check the bylaws first. And Phantom Limb is the perfect face of this. Sharp suit, invisible arms and legs, and the ego of 3 men combined. He's not just evil, he's evil middle management. And across the aisle, you've got the OSI, the Office of Secret Intelligence. Supposedly the good guys. But they're just as buried in red tape. Need to send Brock or Shore Leave on a mission? Clear it with hunter-gatherers. Want to stop a villain? Better make sure it's in your jurisdiction. The Guild and the OSI are Coke and Pepsi, 2 systems that only exist because the other one does. Without villains, OSI has no purpose. Without OSI, the Guild has no structure. It's kayfabe for the entire world. And Hunter Gathers nails it. Nick Fury meets Hunter S. Thompson, paranoid, chain-smoking, but sharp as hell. He knows it's all a rigged game, but he plays it anyway, because that's all there is. So when you see the Guild and the OSI bicker, remember, they're not enemies. They're partners in maintaining the status quo. And now for some of the best glow-ups. You've got Gary, or Henchman 21. He starts as a background joke, just cannon fodder and butterfly wings, riffing about Star Wars with his buddy, Henchman 24. But then 24 dies, and grief transforms him. He trains, he bulks up, he becomes a legit soldier. By the later seasons, he's the Monarch's most loyal lieutenant and his closest friend. That's Venture in a nutshell. Nobody's disposable, not even the henchman. Then there's Dr. Orpheus. Comes in looking like a Doctor Strange parody, capes, theatrics, big magical incantations. Should have been a one-off gag. Instead, he becomes the heart of the compound. Single dad, sorcerer, member of the Order of the Triad, and one of the only adults who genuinely actually cares about Dean. Orpheus proves parody can have heart. And then there's the Red Death. And he's a monster. Cloaked figure, voiced by Clancy Brown. And for those who don't know, that's Mr. Krabs and SpongeBob. But he's feared across the guild. He's terrifying. And then you get the reveal. He's also a suburban dad. PTA meetings, bedtime stories, and strict about keeping work and family separate. The episode Red Means Stop absolutely nails it. He terrifies the Monarch 1 minute, but then tells him, family is important. Don't let this job get in the way. That's Venture brilliance. The scariest man in the room is also balancing carpools. And now, just real quick, we've got to talk about one of my favorite background gags turned real deal characters. The pirate captain. He sails in during Ghosts of the Sargasso, playing the spooky villain role, except instead of supernatural terror, what we actually get is a guy in glow-in-the-dark paint leading a crew of burnout cosplayers. Half menace, half Scooby-Doo villain, and already instantly iconic. But Venture Brothers being the Venture Brothers, they don't leave him there. He pops back up, and suddenly he's got an arc. The dude's battling a morphine addiction, hitting rock bottom, going through recovery, and somehow, ending up as the COO of Venture Industries? Like, how do you go from fake ghost pirate to Rusty Venture's right-hand man in a corporate setting? Only on the Venture Brothers. And the thing is, he's good at it. Or, at the very least, good enough. He's the perfect kind of Venture character, still mildly incompetent in the bigger picture, still overwhelmed most of the time, but he's trying. And in the Venture Brothers, that counts. The pirate captain is hilarious, but he's also quietly one of the show's best redemption arcs. He proves that even the goofball one-off villains, the background cannon fodder, can stumble their way into being a part of the Venture family. From glow paint to sobriety milestones, from ghost ship shenanigans to boardroom spreadsheets, the pirate captain might not be the hero anyone asked for, but he's exactly the kind of absurd survivor that makes this world feel alive. And real quick, there's the extended family. Billy Quizboy and Pete White. Billy's a failed boy genius, Pete's a failed DJ, and together they form Conjectural Technologies, which sounds like an excuse to dodge taxes, but they matter. Billy's backstory in The Invisible Hand of Fate gives him real scars. Pete's loyalty sneaks out when you least expect it. They're losers, sure, but they're family. And while we're talking extended family, we can't forget Dermot. Dermot is the ultimate Venture Brothers punchline. The wannabe tough guy who thinks he's a dangerous rebel, but in reality, he's the cringiest fucking kid at the mall. He talks big, he postures, he tries to act like he's Brock level hardcore, and everybody around him knows he's a fucking clown. And then comes the twist. He's not just some random idiot hanging around the compound. He's Rusty's biological son, which makes him Hank and Dean's half-brother. That reveal is so Venture, it hurts. A background gag character suddenly gets folded right into the messy Venture family tree. Rusty's failures ripple out in yet another direction. And the boys suddenly have to deal with the fact that this dorky wannabe edgelord is their brother. It's awkward, but it's hilarious. And it's perfect, because only in the Venture Brothers does the guy you laughed at for being pathetic end up carrying one of the show's most tragic, ridiculous truths. Then there's Sergeant Hatred. Starts as a villain, ends as the Venture's bodyguard. And yeah, he's fucking gross. Messy and incredibly inappropriate. But he cares about the boys. And he tries. And in the Venture Brothers, trying, even failing, absolutely counts. And then there's the original Team Venture. Colonel Gentleman, Action Man, Otto, Kano, they were legends in their heyday. But by the time we get to see them, they're wrecks. Gentleman's a diary-writing disaster. Action Man is a liability with a pulse. Otto's an outdated comic book punchline. And Kano bears it all in silence. They're walking exhibits of Jonas Sr.'s poison. And honestly, guys, I've got to call it there, because if I keep adding characters, we'll be here all night. That's the double-edged sword of the Venture Brothers. You come for Rusty, Brock, Hank, and Dean, but before long you're neck-deep in henchmen with arcs, pirate captains with HR titles, washed-up boy geniuses, and Russian assassins in chastity belts. The world just keeps expanding. Everyone matters. Even the background gags grow into something tragic, hilarious, or both. That's why talking about this show is like quicksand. The deeper you go, the harder it is to climb back out. So before this podcast turns into a 10-hour audiobook, let's shift gears because all those arcs, all that character work, it really shines when you see how it plays out episode to episode. And the Venture Brothers had some stone cold classics. So we can briefly cover some milestones. Not just fan favorites, but the ones that show you why this series was different. The ones where the jokes turn into arcs, where the parody flips into pathos, where the Venture DNA really shows itself. These are the episodes that prove why the show still matters 20 years later. Starting off, you've got Tag Sale. You're It from season 1. And this one's legendary. The Ventures host a yard sale for their junk tech, and suddenly, every villain and hero in the city shows up. It's a swap meet for super science. It's the world-building atom bomb. The moment you realize how big this sandbox really is. Then there's the Invisible Hand of Fate from season 3, a phantom limb deep dive. This is where the continuity flex really hits. You realize the guild isn't just a gag, it's a system. Spanakopita from season 5. Pure Rusty. He gets conned into thinking he's a folk hero on a Greek island. It's funny, it's sad, it's Rusty Venture in a nutshell. Operation P.R.O.M, the season 4 finale. Pure chaos ballet. Hank and Dean finally come of age. Sort of. And all the factions collide in one operatic mess. One of the most celebrated episodes for a reason. And of course, all this and Gargantua 2. The special that blew up the sky, killed off JJ, reset the board, and proved the show could go bigger than ever. And my personal comfort episode, The Ghosts of the Sargasso. Flashback to 1969. Major Tom test pilots one of Jonas Sr.'s planes. Crashes into the Atlantic. Flash to present day. Rusty drags the crew to salvage it. He's in a ridiculous dive suit dictating pompous journal entries like he's Captain Ahab with a hangover. Hank nearly kills him with the crane, and Brock shreds his hands trying to keep him alive. Then, pirates. Glow paint, Scooby-Doo theatrics, and the pirate captain. Half scary, half sad, fully iconic. He takes Dean hostage, Brock gets chained in the brig, and suddenly, we're in pulp chaos. And then comes Brock's infamous scene. The ignition keys hidden up his ass. A pirate checks, Brock clamps down and uses the guy as a human flail. Grotesque, violent, absolutely hilarious. Meanwhile, Rusty's sonar wakes Major Tom's corpse. And here comes the real ghost, a screaming, flaming skeleton in a flight suit, straight off a heavy metal album cover. The pirates aren't ghosts, but the ghost is horrifyingly real. The finale is chaos. Hank calling Orpheus for backup, the pirate captain unraveling, Brock dismembering the ghost just to shut it up. Rusty nearly drowning under Tom's glowing skull. It ends the way it always does, with the boys cheering, "Go, Team Venture!" And then it all comes down to the movie. Radiant is the blood of the Baboon Heart. And I'll keep it light on spoilers in case for whatever reason some of you still haven't seen it. But the broader strokes, Hank goes missing. Dean tries to find him. Rusty gets dragged back into family drama. The Monarch searches for answers about his obsession. And a figure from the Venture's past threatens to unravel it all. It ties threads together, it pays off the long game, and it ends on the bittersweet note the show always lived on. Because that's Venture Brothers. It was never about triumph. It was about survival, failure, and family in all its broken forms. And like I said, the fans loved it, the critics loved it. It was the closure we as fans thought we'd never get. The rare Adult Swim show that actually got to say goodbye. And now I know I said I'd keep it light on spoilers, but there's one moment in Radiant as the Blood of the Baboon Heart I have to linger on. Maybe the most Venture moment of all. Heartfelt first, absurd second. Dean, who's always been the more thoughtful one, finally confronts Rusty. He wants to know about his origins, about identity, about where he came from. And for once, maybe the only time, Rusty doesn't dodge. He doesn't deflect with ego or sarcasm. He tells Dean, all you need to know is the person who gave birth to you loves you. I promise they do. That's not Jonas Sr. talking. That's not some absent mother figure. That's all Rusty. The selfish, insecure, spectacular failure finally telling his son the truth. I love you. And then the credits roll. You think that's the end, but come on, this is the Venture Brothers, so of course they give us one more twist. The after-credits stinger shows it. Rusty strapped into an artificial womb suit, literally carrying Hank and Dean like some sci-fi kangaroo pouch. It's absurd, it's funny, and it's the visual proof of what he just told Dean. Rusty really did give birth to the boys in the weirdest, most Venture way possible. He carried them, he protected them, and he loves them. It's messy, it's weird, it's 100% Venture, but it's also shockingly real. After 20 years of clone jokes, absentee parenting, and catastrophic failures, Rusty finally says the thing that's been buried the whole time. He loves his boys. And that's why the ending works. Because the show tells you straight up you don't get to choose where you come from, but you do get to choose who your family is. Complicated, broken, stitched together with duct tape and trauma, but it's still love. So why does the Venture Brothers endure? Because it wasn't just parody, it was empathy. It showed us Jonas Sr.'s poison, Rusty's mediocrity, JJ's competence, the Blue Morpho's tragedy, the Monarch's obsession, the Guild and the OSI's absurd bureaucracy, Gary's growth, Orpheus's sincerity, Red Death's balance, even Billy Pete hatred and the pirate captain. But much more than all that, it showed us family. Not the clean kind, not the Hallmark Channel kind. The Venture family is complicated. It's brothers who hate each other, fathers who fail their sons. It's duct tape and trauma and sarcasm and bad parenting. And love sneaking in through the cracks anyways. That's why the ending of Radiant lands so hard. Dean asks the question that's been hanging there the whole series. And for once, Rusty answers with 100% sincerity. All you need to know is the person who gave birth to you loves you. I promise they do. We've already seen the grotesque Venture punchline that follows, but it's that line. That moment of truth. It sticks. Rusty, the eternal screw-up, finally says out loud that he loves his boys. And that's the thing. The Venture Brothers always mirrored reality more than we admitted. Because in real life, family is messy. Parents fail, siblings fight. Sometimes we inherit trauma instead of legacies. Sometimes we're handed expectations we can never live up to, or shadows so big they smother us. And sometimes the people who were supposed to protect us are the ones who leave the scars. But, and this is the part the Venture Brothers gets right, there's still love. Not perfect love, not clean, shiny love. Love stitched together with duct tape and sarcasm, inside jokes and awkward hugs, bad parenting and good intentions. Most of us don't come from Jonas Sr. level greatness. We come from ordinary families that screw up, that let us down, that sometimes hurt us. But we also find chosen families, the friends who stick around, the partners who have our backs, the weird communities where we finally feel like we belong. That's the Venture Brothers too. It's saying, yeah, your dad might be a Rusty, your brother might be a Monarch, hell, you might be a Gary. But all of that's okay. Because love doesn't have to be perfect to matter. Failure doesn't erase love. Sometimes it's the proof of it. That's why the ending of Radiant works, because Rusty, after a lifetime of failing, finally says what every kid needs to hear. The person who brought you into this world loves you, and the show lets us believe him, if even just for a second. That's not parody. That's the most real thing the Venture Brothers ever gave us. And that's why it hits so hard. Because Venture reminds us that broken doesn't mean worthless, and messy doesn't mean loveless. We stumble, we screw up, we inherit baggage we never asked for. But none of that means the story's over. Because in the Venture Brothers, and in reality, failure is never the end. Failure is the arc. And what comes after is so beautiful. The Venture Brothers turned jokes into arcs, cannon fodder into heroes, villains into bureaucrats, parodies into people. Rusty fails, the Monarch fails, everyone fails. But in those failures, you find the humanity. Other Adult Swim shows reset every week. The Venture Brothers remembered. It rewarded patience. It proved you could tell serialized, character-driven stories on a block built for randomness. And that's why people still shout it 20 years later. Go Team Venture. Because in a world of butterfly wings, screaming skeletons, and paperwork villains, this broken family made failure look beautiful. And that's the Venture Brothers' legacy. And that's going to do it for this Checkpoint Extra, my Venture Brothers cut. But before I roll credits, I gotta give the shout-outs. First, to my player 2, you've been my Dr. Mrs. the Monarch through all of this. Stylish, brilliant, patient with my constant bugging through research, and somehow putting up with my constant need for validation and praise after every episode. And shout out to Cap, the Jonas Jr. to my Rusty. You saw this passion before I did, and gave me the push to finally press record. To my brother holding down the editorial side, you're my Brock Sampson, man. Holding the line while I dive into these ridiculous deep dives, and saving me from pirates and bad takes. And to Pickle, I'm going to turn around now and you better be on fire. You're standing there in flames, and the only person who can put you out is me. Because that is the only conceivable reason that you would wake me up like this. And most importantly, to you. Yeah, you listening. You're the guild and the OSI all rolled together. The reason this whole system works. Without you, this show's just me yelling into the void like Rusty dictating into his tape recorder at the bottom of the Sargasso. So, if you dug this trip through the Ventureverse, do me a favor. Rate, review, and share it with your fellow nerds. Feed those algorithm gods so more people can stumble into this butterfly-winged mess. And with that, I'll leave you the only way I can. Stay gold, nerd bold, and go Team Venture!